Hey guys, welcome to the three relationships that we're looking to resolve in our lives. Comes down to relationship with Hashem, relationship with ourselves, and relationship with our fellow man and family. So, welcome. So there's three types of relationships. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Benson Fox. I'm a life coach and a psychology doctorate candidate / student. I hope to graduate at the end of May. That's my doctorate of psychology. And so the topic today is trying to come to a resolution with these three kinds of relationships. And I think that before we dive into any specific one, let's just make some rules that I think can apply broadly in all three. So the first principle to understand is that anything that's true for one of the relationships is true for all of them. So what does that mean? Let's say, in relationship with your fellow man, you have something called communication, right? You need to receive communications, you need to deliver communications. And I think for many of us, we don't necessarily think in those terms when we're talking about a relationship with Hashem or relationship with ourselves. That you have to, who you're talking to yourself. And we're going to get more into that in a minute. But let's just go through a few other things that we can show you that based on this really important rule, this central rule, is that anything that's true for one of the relationships is true for all of them. So let's talk about trust, right? In a relationship, it's so important to trust someone. It's very important to trust Hashem. It's very important to trust yourself. We trust all the different parts of yourself. Let's talk about love. It's important for you to love your fellow man, or for that person to give love, to receive love. So that's going to be true for you to feel loved by Hashem and to give love to Hashem, and the same thing, give love to yourself and receive love from yourself. So respect, love, trust, communication. And this is one that also people don't necessarily see in the same lens. There's something called a relationship rupture, meaning you create some type of fissure, a ongoing problem, a source of tension that emerges, due to some type of form of a conflict. So in all these situations, what you're dealing with here is a conflict between different parts of yourself. And just as when you have machlokas with another person, you seek resolution, you also need to find and use your internal leadership to find resolution within the fight with yourself, and also with your fight with Hashem. What do you mean, fight with Hashem? I love Hashem. Only thing I do all day is sing thank you, Hashem. Yes, but the truth is that we all start out with the level of maturity of children. And we all have to come to a resolution with Hashem in the sense that there's always the kind of like the whininess of why me, and you see only the negative, what Hashem gives you, without the positive. And that's the experience of a child, or an infant, a child, maybe even a teenager. And there's a need for this resolution to take place. This one where you kind of talk it out with Hashem and say, Hashem will explain to you why there was a need for it, and then you come to state your grievances clearly. And we find in Tehillim, from David HaMelech, and we find this throughout the davening, the Anshei Knesset HaGadola, etc., Shlomo HaMelech, there's always this dialogue that occurs between us and Hashem. We say, Hashiveinu Hashem Elecha v'nashuva, that we daven Hashem, return to us and we'll return to you. And Hashem says that Hashem's telling us that we need to return first and then He will return. So there is this communication that seems to go back and forth. There's this resolution, their relationship ruptures, there's a need for reconciliation, trust, respect, forgiveness, etc. It goes on and on and on. That we need to understand that anything that applies bein am l'chaver, between you and your fellow man, also applies bein am la'atzon, bein am l'makom, between you and the intrapersonal, the interpersonal, and between you and the divine, all run parallel and all follow the same rules and functions. Really important point. All right, so let's deal with, I think, interpersonally, I think we're all used to hearing all these topics. I think that's a lot of therapies focused on that. It's focused somewhat on intrapersonal, and it overwhelmingly ignores the divine relationship. I think partly because Freud was anti-religious, meaning the very origins of psychology. There are many Yidden that are psychologists and psychoanalysts, psychodynamic, etc. But overwhelmingly, they're all secular, or very traditional at best. So I think there's a certain influence, and part of it's also from society, and the ethics codes of society tell you to leave religion out of things. But I believe very strongly that, as a life coach and, psychologist, in the near future, that it's very important to integrate it within a person's therapy sessions. And this is how a person does this. Because you need to do it from a place of integrating and inculcating values. right? There's no such thing as this blank neutrality that many therapists would have us believe, that they're just completely neutral. No, of course, they're going to promote things that they consider to be healthy or adaptive behaviors, wholesome. They'll promote deep breathing, exercise, social relationships, etc. That's universal. Everyone considers those good. But then it gets to more iffy territory, and many therapists will continue to push for things. It's very important to communicate everything to your wife or everything to your parents, etc., which, the Torah maybe has a more nuanced view on that regarding Lashon Hara and To'elas, constructive benefit. So I think that there is this need to bring in religion from a perspective of values. And there's no such thing as absolute neutrality. It is the job of a therapist to integrate values that they consider for their client that they consider to be wholesome, healthy, and aspirational, right? You can't go diametrically opposed. You can't create these wars between you and your client. But if your client is receptive to it, then it's definitely, I think, is the way to go. But there's also a deeper point here. So that's just like from a point of values, goals, aspirations. In a way, values aren't superficial, but in a way, those are more the external. Then there's this, on a soul level, your level of connection to Hashem. And there can be these psycho-spiritual traumas that have occurred throughout your life that have caused you to create distance. And this is where we need to apply the same principles as we would have it interpersonally. We need to apply it in this relationship, which is reciprocation, gratitude, etc. And by applying these forces within it, then we're able to find resolution and eventually to let go of our hurt and our anger and resentment that we hold towards Hashem, which every person has. There isn't any person who's free of these things. If a person hasn't addressed these things, then you haven't started this journey. You haven't started this journey of applying the principles of the interpersonal to you and God, and you also haven't started the journey of coming one with Hashem. And that's not just by smiling and saying thank you Hashem and saying things like this, which can be, again, for someone that's on a lower level or even on a higher level, that can be a step, that could be a level. But it's really important for us to be mature and understand that part of maturity is understanding our own immaturity. Part of maturity is understanding our own immaturity and understanding that until we develop something, until we work on ourselves, we are the same as everyone else. And everyone has the why me attitude. Why me? Why do I need to? Why did Hashem only give me the suffering in my life? So we need to, if we're going to be mature and we want to grow and develop and become and decrease our sense of loneliness. Everyone's so lonely today, and part of that loneliness is because interpersonally we become less social. But a lot of that loneliness is because intrapersonally we become lonely with ourselves. There's so many parts of ourselves that we've exiled, repressed, and denied that they even exist. And then, so that's a loneliness within oneself. And then there's a loneliness because we're so distant from Hashem. And that's not, okay, but I daven and I learn, I this, I that. Yeah, that's the structure. That's like, those are like maybe the responsibilities. But it's not experiential and it's not internalized, and you don't experience that oneness, that connection, that love. And until you do, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I daven and learn. It can be the equivalent of I'm in a room full of people, and I'm on my phone. It's like you're with people, but you're not connecting with them. So you're with Hashem, but you're not connecting to Hashem. And I think that this is such a deep loneliness that our neshama, our souls, experience in those times. And I think so. If we want a hope of addressing this, we can't just seek to deny and repress and get rid of our resentment and our anger and our frustrations that we have with Hashem. The David HaMelech, we find many times in Tehillim, he cries to Hashem, "Don't forget me. Don't sleep. Stop sleeping, Hashem." Right? Don't sleep. Don't forget me. What do you mean Hashem forgets? Hashem sleeps? Hashem doesn't need any of these things. That's the experience that David HaMelech was sharing on a level that he experienced Hashem as sleeping, he experienced Hashem as forgetting. Right? We say in Nishmas, Al tishkacheni la'netzach, don't forget us forever. What do you forget us? Forget us forever? Hashem doesn't have dementia. So this is where we need to begin our journey. And the journey begins by first understanding that we first of all, we have a relationship with Hashem. That relationship could be avoidant, it can be lonely. It's the same, right? It's the same thing as the interpersonal. So first understand we have a relationship with Hashem. Number one, whether I think atheism is its own relationship with Hashem. It's a relationship of denial of that relationship. And then we have another type of relationship. We have the relationship another aspect to this. Number one, you have to acknowledge there is a relationship. And number two, you have to acknowledge that it goes by the same rules of any relationship. Through reciprocation, love, trust, respect, etc. Communication, ruptures, etc. So, and then number three is then once we understand that we do have a relationship with Hashem, we understand that how the relationship works, we need to understand that we're starting out. Where are you starting out once you come to these realizations? You're starting out as a baby. And the baby has complete selfishness and narcissism. That's what babies do. They're not thinking at all of anyone else. They're thinking only if the mother gives the milk, it may stop crying. But it's not going to say thank you. It doesn't think of when I'm going to cry, this, etc. That's how we're all starting out on our journey with Hashem. And if we haven't worked on it, that's what we're up to. And we have to be honest about that. And then how do we deal with it? You have to cry. Right? That's how you start developing over time. You cry to Hashem. Hashem, why do you do this to me? You need to have that open dialogue. You need to allow your real raw emotions and stop repressing them and engage with Hashem. And when you do so, eventually what you do is you come to a point where you end up validating. You need to validate it for yourself and feel good about yourself and create a dialogue with Hashem. And Hashem will answer back through the Torah. Hashem will answer you back through His own divine providence. And He'll answer you back through powers of your own intuition. And sometimes Hashem will answer you in those ways, that you'll have a voice that will come to you, a thought, an emotion. And you're like, wait, where'd this come from? And you're like, this resonates, it feels true to me. Hashem can answer like that as well. So through these different ways that we receive, and we have to be open to receiving that communication. We have to be willing to hear, right? It's like a radio signal. The radio signal is there. You have to turn yourself to the right channel. You have to be willing to receive that channel. Otherwise, it's just noise that you're just going to blur out of your experience. So we have to acknowledge it, that we have this problem, and then you need to communicate with Hashem. Eventually, when your anger has had its say, when your frustration, resentment, you allowed it to express itself, and you have struggled with Hashem back and forth, I think even the root, that etymology of the word hispalo, some say is a struggle, that when you're struggling with Hashem in this sense, eventually to reach a point where then, due to your overwhelming gratitude, you're able to put your pain, your problems, your traumas of your life, your powerlessness, your helplessness, your brokenness, and you're able to put it on you're able to see that and now zoom out and see that this pain, this dark in the painting, is within the context an overwhelming and astonishing and awesome amount of goodness that, we said reciprocation is part of the relationship. There is no way to reciprocate. That this teeny bout that we're seeing is bad, which isn't actually bad, right? Because Hashem does kol madav rachman l'tav avid. Everything Hashem does is for good. The part that we're experiencing is bad, and we should be validated in ourselves, and we need to engage as human beings and say that, okay, but I know it's ultimately for good, but Hashem, why do you punish me? And give the space to the anger, eventually by putting it in the context of overwhelming good, and to receive it from a place of that it's all coming within the context of love. Then we're able to then ultimately forgive, because forgiveness can only come from a place of love, right? Because if from a place of din, of strict judgment, there's no reason to let something go. Why should I let something go? Because I did something bad to you? That's not a reason to let you go. Each of us still owe each other something. The place to leave someone go is a place where you're going beyond strict justice. That's a place, Ava Michalkel says ashura, you come from a place of love to do that. Right? Love is the mechanism for forgiveness. So that's how we do it. By putting in this context of overwhelming good, we have to let go of our resentment, let go of our anger. First, give a space for it, give it its respect, give it its time, struggle with Hashem, but eventually come to let go. And once you start letting go of those anger and resentment, we never fully do, but to the degree that we do that, in direct proportion to that, is the degree of genuine, authentic connection. And we're davening to Hashem, we don't have this sense of like, yeah, it may happen, it may not happen. You're davening to Hashem like He's an ATM machine, like He's this objectified entity whose job is to do your bidding. You start seeing it as the lens of relationship, this lens of love, right? Then I think it allows for these transformation, allows for this genuine, authentic, real connection that will address our core need for loneliness. Then if no one wants to be our friend, yes, we'll feel somewhat lonely, but a lot of the sting of that loneliness is because our relationship with the divine, again, works to all the same rules as our interpersonal relationship, will have been largely addressed. And that'll be our baseline. That's, and then we expand from there with our relationship with ourselves and relationship with others. But I think that we need to be honest about this relationship, start from the beginning, have the humility to, like Rabbi Kiva, start going to kindergarten in this way of like learning from scratch. Understand that for the vast majority of us, we haven't even started in a sense, haven't even started this journey of addressing what our core relationship with Hashem is supposed to be like. And that involves coming to a reconciliation of the negativity. And I think I have for you guys a very powerful visual. So, because how do we come to this place of loving Hashem and then ultimately going towards forgiveness? How do we get to that place where we are willing to let go of that anger and resentment? How do we get to that place of love? Because here's the predicament. Hashem already gives us everything. So, we say it depends what your love language is. Anything good, any love I think this is a powerful way to see this. Any love you have received was from Hashem. And everything, Hashem has many messengers. So imagine every love communication you've received through acts of service, touch, affirmations, words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, etc. All the communications of love you could possibly be given, all throughout your entire lifespan, has all come from Hashem. So imagine someone giving you all the love of everything, your accumulation of all the love you've ever received in your entire life and been given your entire life. That's all come from one entity. And you're still not willing to receive it. So what are we dealing with here? How is it even possible for you to acknowledge this love? What are we even dealing with here? How does we come to this place where if that's not enough, then what would be enough, right? If that's not enough love to give to one person, then you're not willing to acknowledge it there, then what would be enough for you? And I think the powerful visual I'll share with you is that imagine that you're standing under a waterfall, and the waterfall represents Hashem's love. And you're standing under there with you have a little teacup of what you're willing to receive, and you stand there under there, and you're like, how much does Hashem love me? And you're standing with a little teacup, and all the water comes in, and by the time you go out, the water's already splashed out, and you live with a little teeny little puddle inside your teacup, and you're like, oh, I feel so sad, I feel so alone, feel so broken because this is all Hashem loves me. This is what's in my little cup. What needs to expand is not what Hashem gives you. Hashem's given you everything. All the love you've received, all the goodness, everything, your soul, your family, your body, your health, everything you have going for you, all your functionality, all your wealth, etc. All come from Him. So we need to find a way to receive that love. Find a way to receive it. We need to stop using a teacup and start building ourselves like one of these generators under there that's able to receive all the love and transform and convert that into an energy. And convert that energy to something now you can apply that in your life. And now you have this baseline that's so secure in feeling love, so secure in feeling important and respected and trusted by Hashem, because Hashem trusts your life. What more trust can you give someone? You can use it for good and use it for evil. Hashem gave you life. And He gave you life, He gave you love, He gave you everything. And then we need to expand. We can't just sit there under a waterfall of Hashem's love. The unending, constantly inundated, but no pun intended, inundated with Hashem's gifts and blessing and love. That if we're not able to receive that love with our little teacup, let's expand that teacup. Let's get first those Poland Spring bottles, right? Let's go and expand that to a house. And the generator, let's take all that energy and convert that and bring that into our hearts. And if you do, imagine now someone, let's say, makes fun of you about something. It bounces off. You're so secure. You're so loved. How could anything affect you in a negative way? This is not enough to be intellectual. This needs to be internalized. This needs to be eternalized inside of oneself. And I think if we do that, then we can, this is the path towards this real relationship with Hashem, real relationship with ourselves, and real relationship with others. We need to put the context of all these relationships within this attitude of gratitude, context of overwhelming good. Hashem, in a sense, it's the hardest, and in a sense, it's the easiest. It's the hardest is that we can't see Him, we can't hear Him, there's a part of us that will always question Him, His existence, etc. But then there's the other part that's easier. That is that everything good in your life comes from Him. So if that's not enough, then what is? And it should pass your threshold and expand your cup to receive all of that love. Then any threat to your ego, any threat to anyone disrespects you, anyone doesn't do things the way you wanted them to do, it doesn't hurt you. You're inoculated because your baseline of love that you're securing from Hashem is so high. It's higher than when people feel, even when they experience true love from even the people around them and within themselves. And I think let's apply this. So that's how we're applying to our relationship with Hashem, and that's the path towards healing, letting go of the resentment, and that gives you that authentic real intimate relationship that we all crave and yearn for, and we're all like hungering and thirsting for. But then there's a relationship with ourselves, and I think we could do the same thing for that. Is that all the good that we've done in our own lives came from ourselves? We've made plenty of failings and fallings, and times we're dishonest with ourselves, and we invited problems onto ourselves, pain and suffering and trauma. Yes, and we also were the ones who made every good choice that we made in our lives was done by us. And that should give us that, we should amplify that love and give ourselves that proper love and proper appreciation, proper gratitude, etc. And then we put our bad choices within the context of the gratitude that we're making of all the good decisions we've made. And then we weaponize our love. We use our love for what it's meant for, to build ourselves, to give ourselves forgiveness. And then there are parts of ourselves that, let's say, that our traumas are, for me, the way I would define a trauma is a lot of people see the definition of trauma as an event. A person got abused in some way, some person got neglected, bullied, raped, whatever it was, whatever happened to the person, assault, etc. That we see that assault, that problem, that pain, and that problem as that's like what was done to me. And then it's like that experience is captured, is trapped in time, and we relive it again and again, etc., etc. But I think that's a mistake, actually, because I think that events are not what is the actual trauma. I think it's the rupture in our relationship with ourselves that is the true damage of a trauma. What do I mean? Let's say someone gets bullied, right? Let's give a nice concrete example here. Let's say someone gets bullied. So yes, the person got humiliated and it hurt them, or etc. Physical harm, emotional harm. Okay. But why is that staying with you? Like, normally when someone gets pain, the pain fades and goes away. What keeps it trapped? What I believe is that it's not the event that's being replayed in your mind that's not the primary trauma, if you will. That's not what's keeping it trapped in time. What's keeping it trapped in time is that this event was represented like when you had a certain thing happen in your family, and then you had a certain family member you never talked to again. Something like that. Where it's like an event that led to a rupture, led to this breakage in your relationship with yourself, with others, with Hashem, etc. That is what a trauma is. Trauma is that it made let's say the part of you that was fearful of standing up for yourself, now that part of yourself that you listened to and didn't engage, allowed yourself to get beat up by the bully, now that part of yourself you have exiled, and you hate that part of yourself, because that part of yourself, you hold it responsible for all the pain and all the suffering that it caused you. And now that fissure in that rupture in your relationship has never been resolved. Until this day, that part of yourself is repressed, denied, and exiled. You don't want no connection to it. You want nothing to do with it in your life. And so this is this is what we're dealing with here, is that when you have this internal rupture, what do? Most people, they just leave it, and it stays forever in their systems, and they're trying to do CBT, DBT, ACT. They're trying to do all these things and trying to cope with the pain, and they don't know where's this pain coming from. You're at war with yourself. There's a civil war going on. Of course you're suffering. Of course you're in pain. So how do we bring peace to the civil war? We do, just as we mentioned with our relationship with Hashem, we apply that same thing to ourselves. We look at that part and we have gratitude. We have love for that part. How do we do that? We need to look at all the times that it protected us. Fear is protective. It protects you from threats. How many times without fear, what happens with people who don't have fear? They die, and quick. Because they walk in the middle of a street and they'll say, hey, I'm here. This will be fun. What happens if I stand in front of here? Right? You have no fear. What happens if I walk off a cliff? Oh, that'd be cool. Oh, there. If you have no fear, you die. You need to have gratitude. Your fears kept you alive up to this point. Okay, one time or a few times it gave you bad advice that was bad. Responsibility. Maybe take responsibility and take some of that shame off of it and take it out onto yourself and take ownership. Hold yourself responsible. Hold yourself accountable for your own decisions. Stop blaming the advisor. Fear is the advisor for what the leader decided. It's not the advisors don't take responsibility for the decisions. It's the decision maker. You, then your internal leader, your internal parent, you're the one who decides these things. So if we put the relationship with that part and we have overwhelming gratitude for it, we're able to expand the love that we're able to feel for it, then Ava Mekalkel says, Ashura, love makes us blur the lines and makes us not see and hold it directly responsible for every single bad thing it told us to and everything that damage that happened. Stop holding it responsible for every single thing that it did wrong. All right, so this is what we spoke about today. We spoke about relationship with ourselves, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and us, and between us and the divine. And we gave a map towards healing, and addressing our isolation and our deep feelings of loneliness in a very profound, real way that others may not be providing for you. I hope this was helpful. I hope that this made sense. If it didn't, you could definitely qualify for a free session. #3 relationships. You can reach me at coachbensonfox.com on OKclarity's website, but you can also reach me at coachbensonfox.com for you can schedule a free session. I'm happy to help you with one free session to integrate these ideas in your life. And if you're interested in doing a more long-term approach, I'm happy to do with that as well. Different packages, very reasonable. I'm so excited to work together with you guys, and I can't wait to see you on the next live. All the best. Thank you for coming, guys. Thank you.